Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.
To gain the loyalty of today's discerning consumer, you have to build trust and humanize your brand.
Growing a healthy online community gives you the opportunity to develop an emotional connection and foster a collection of brand fans.
But it's more than simply posting content and waiting for followers to come.
Love and loyalty doesn't come for free, but it is worth working for.
This is Ryan Eldridge.
And this is Andrea Eldridge.
Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy.
This is episode 21 of the Growth Marketer Academy podcast.
I'm Ryan Eldridge, Chief Strategist at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
And this is Andrea Eldridge, Creative Director at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
An engaged social community is the holy grail of social media management.
It's true. People think of social media as a free pool of people to market to. But just like so much else in digital marketing, appearances are deceiving.
Yeah, paths that get you leads for free generally take a lot of time.
That's right. And that time can be wasted if you don't do it right.
A social following is not a community. And that's what most marketers try to sell you, followers.
This is a key distinction. An online community requires that you create an environment that fosters relationships and organic conversations.
So let's get to how.
So the first step to laying the groundwork is to define your goal. Online community development is just like any other marketing task, and you need to define your goal before you can begin, because how else will you know if your efforts are successful?
Basically, you want to find out what you're hoping to gain by developing your brand's online community. Are you looking to increase revenue? Or are you looking to drive brand awareness? And so you can use the old acronym SMART, which is, make your goal SMART by making it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So to give you an example, let's say your community's goal is to increase engagement, but that's a little too vague to build a community around. So you want to break that down the smart way. So number one, you want to be specific. You want to ask yourself, how do you want engagement to increase? And from what? Let's say you want more new members to engage in a conversation on your discussion board, for an example. That would be a more specific goal.
That's right. And your next step is to make sure that you can easily collect data to measure progress towards your goal. So you can't have something that's a goal that you have no way of measuring whether or not there's been any change from prior to your engagement and prior to your project to the end.
If your goal is to get to Mars, then when you get to Mars, that means you've obtained it. Is that basically what you're saying?
No, I'm saying you have to be able to measure your path to Mars, but we can just take that part out because it doesn't really make sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah. So once you've determined a goal that's specific and measurable, then you also want to make sure it's attainable. You don't want to say, I want to go from 0 followers to 1 million in a month. I mean, it's just, don't set yourself up for failure. You should have at least one strategy in mind that's going to let you actually achieve your goal.
You want to make sure that it's relevant. Your goal needs to be relevant to what you're trying to achieve. For an example, if your goal is to increase engagement, but your metric for success is increased ROI, there's a clear mismatch between what those two things are trying to achieve.
That's right. And finally, your goal needs to be timely. You should be able to achieve the result you're looking for within a sensible period of time. So this is like weeks or months, not like I want to go again from 0 followers to 1 million in the next 5 years. That's not going to give you a way to have a real defined timeline of when you've reached a specific attainable goal.
Well, yeah, if your goal was to get 1 million followers in 5 years, then you just shrink that down and say, well, how many followers do I need to get in a week?
In the next month or in the week, yeah. To at least get started on a goal that is attainable. So next, you need to decide the metrics that you're going to use to measure success. You're going to need to identify the most relevant key performance indicators, the KPIs, that will tell you whether or not you're making progress towards your goal. You're going to use these to determine the performance of your community in relation to your goals. And it's basically how you're going to justify the time and resources you'll be devoting to building a community, because you are going to be devoting quite a bit of time and energy to this project.
So on social media, it's common to measure the following, like applause or the number of followers or likes, engagement, the number of comments and shares, how many link clicks or how many page visits. Mm-hmm. So how do you determine which KPI matters?
Well, it's interesting, actually. Simply Measured put together a pretty cool little table that breaks down the metric you should use based on where a community member is in their buyer's journey and what your goal is, like what you hope to achieve with them. We included a copy of the table in the show notes, like we are opt to do. And, Ryan will probably again tell you that I made it, which I would love to say I did because this one's really cool.
It's actually really good, yeah.
But yeah, this
for
one wasn't
something
me.
that you made, that's amazing.
I know, right?
I've seen you nailed it from the Netflix show, Nailed It. It's kind of like that most of the time, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically, a social media metrics map, and it basically breaks you down from the various places that a potential follower is in their buyer's journey, from awareness, consideration, decision, adoption, advocacy. It gives you an appropriate objective for that level in the buyer's journey. Then it also gives you a social media strategy. So let's say, for example, that you're in the awareness stage. You're early on in the development of your community. You want to increase awareness for your brand using social media. So your goal there, your objective for someone who's at the awareness stage of the buyer's journey is create awareness.
Yeah.
Your social media strategy, they're suggesting expose target audience to brand content. That makes a lot of sense because ultimately you're just looking for exposure, things that are going to interest that person in your brand at this level. Then your social activity is going to be posts and promotions, boosted posts, things that are going to reach a wide audience, but kind of with a large net, just to kind of loop people in. And your social KPIs in that sense are going to be impressions and reach. And what you're going to be looking for as a business impact is going to be top of mind awareness. And I don't know what SOV is.
I have no idea.
Okay. So, hey, maybe look up what SOV is because that's what the social metrics map is suggesting.
That's how I know you didn't make this because
yeah,
it says things you
I
don't
don't even know what it is. Yeah.
So, but it's cool.
So it's a really helpful little social media metric map. So take a look at that in the show notes. Because we could probably build an entire podcast just reading you the data in this really cool
and we'd look
table.
so smart, but we'd have to look up what SOV means first.
Right, yeah. And we'd basically just be reading you stuff that Simply Measured put together. So bravo, Simply Measured. You did a great job. If you already have an established online community, you can measure campaign success with things like micro conversions, which is stuff like downloads, form completions, video watched, return visits, so page visits, direct conversions, and customer acquisition cost. The problem is this is going to be harder to measure, and it's really only going to work if you already have an established online community that you can be communicating directly with people at the part in their buyer's journey where they're looking to make a purchase. It's not really the most easy campaign to start with. Most times you really need to use social media to start with awareness and engagement. Going direct to sales and then measuring by things like conversion can be a little trickier. It's not really the best strategy to start with.
I agree. So stage 2, identify your audience and what they care about. So figuring out the purpose of your community is just the beginning. Next, you want to identify your target audience to base your community around. It's not that every follower on your brand is going to be your target.
Nope.
Right? So your community needs a strong underlying theme. So it's time to pull out those audience personas from episode 2.
Way back in episode 2. I know, right? Right? See,
So-
we always bring it back around.
For a quick recap, with your personas, you're going to be identifying your ideal customer's age, gender, location, their frustrations, their challenges. And guess what? In the show notes, we've included yet another example of a wonderful persona that you can use.
And you're going to probably end up with more than one persona. It's not
Yes.
that you just decide. Every brand has more than one customer, right? You don't only have one specific person that buys your product. Theoretically.
But when you're building your messaging, you're going to be targeting your messaging around a specific persona each time. So
Yes.
I'm going to go after men who like flannel shirts and chop wood. Right?
That's right.
And that's going to be a different message from a woman who likes to go camping with her dogs.
So even though both of those you may have a persona dedicated to, because both of those might be your customer, you have to focus what you're aiming your community towards, because you can't please everybody all the time, and you can't create one community that's going to effectively connect with all of them. So you kind of basically just have to pick your best
And
option, the
a
one
real-
that you think is most likely to convert.
A real easy example to look at advertising that is dedicated to a specific persona is to look at car commercials.
Okay.
I know that sounds weird, but right? If you watch a car commercial and they're selling you the new Chevy half-ton pickup, what are you going to see? You're going to see a dude in a flannel shirt hauling dirt, with some motorcycles, and then maybe a camper, and right, he's going to have a cowboy hat on or something.
Because what's interesting is even if that's not the customer that ends up buying that truck, it's who the customer envisions themselves to be.
Or the hero they envision,
Yes,
right? They say,
when they buy
I
it.
want to be like that guy. He's freaking awesome. He's so manly,
Yeah.
right? And then you've got sort of the mom in the SUV, and it's the brakes stop before you hit the person in the crosswalk. And it's got these extra safety features, and it comes in cobalt blue, right?
And the minivan is always about like how much you can pack
Yeah.
in and all the kids popping
Yeah.
out, yeah.
So if you had the cowboy who's hauling the RV and you're showing how quick it can stop, they're going to be like, I don't care.
Now I'm just confused.
Yeah, and it's in
Yeah.
cobalt blue. That's lame. I don't want that periwinkle color. I want something manly. I want something gray and black, right? So you can't confuse your messaging. You have to send your messaging to a direct persona. And you can have multiple personas, but when you're identifying your ideal customer, that's where you want to start, right? Because everyone has one ideal. There's one persona that's going to outweigh the others, and that's the one you want to market to first, because that's where you're going to have most of your success.
So basically, it comes down to identifying your core audience that is defined by a single persona that you choose out of your plethora, probably, of personas available.
And what motivates them, what grabs their attention. You want to create
That's gonna be your
content.
key question because, you really need to know that answer before you get started on anything else.
Yeah, you want to create content that your community can actually engage with, and you want to be able to answer that question.
So, for example, if someone is interested in running, they might be more inclined to learn about the training regimen of other runners than reviews of gear, for example. And so running an interview series with fellow runners would be more effective than product-focused posts for that specific community member.
I'll give you an example. I've had a personal trainer for the last year, right? And recently you've been seeing in my YouTube feed this Athletic X guy. I can't think of the guy's name. But anyway, he does a series of videos, and I keep watching his videos because he shows you how to do a particular workout the right way, or how to eat certain foods to get certain results that you want. And I find them interesting. You probably find them super boring. But the other day I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, is he just being a community service kind of thing and telling everybody how to do these cool things? Turns out he's selling a workout program and a diet program for $77.
Makes sense.
But I didn't know that because he never promoted his brand. But I'm his target audience. The middle-aged dude with a dad bod that's looking to get fit because he wants to look sweet for, between 45 and 50. And that's what he's selling, is this $77 program. If I didn't already have a trainer, I totally would have bought it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you did search out more about him, and
Yeah.
so his campaign is
It's
obviously effective.
super successful. I'm going to call that guy.
But you mentioned something really important here, which is it's so important that you not self-promote or talk about an upcoming sale. It can't be super focused in a traditional marketing state, and that's what so many people in community development don't realize. They build a group of followers, and then they just
Bash 'em.
hit them with offer after offer and sale and this and that. If you're going to do anything promotion based, you have to have already established that connection with your community. They don't want to feel like you're just using them. A community is truly you're fostering ultimately the online equivalent to friendships with these people. And so you can't, no friend is going to want to have a conversation with someone who's only talking about themselves and only talking about, oh, well, I can sell you this for this price, or I could sell you this for this price. Which one do you like better? I mean, at some point, your friends are going to be like, dude, I don't want to even go to your next Tupperware party because seriously, I don't want to buy any Tupperware.
Well, who goes to a Tupperware party and doesn't expect to buy Tupperware?
Right?
Yeah. But as you bring that up, we always refer to our community managers as the host of a party. Right?
Nice.
They're
Yeah,
the
that's
host
true.
of a party. They're there to make introductions. They're there to introduce people to other people. They're there to make connections for other people, but they're not there to sell their own stuff.
Yes. And that's a hugely important thing to take away. If nothing else from this podcast, it is not a promotional tool.
So let's talk about how to find what your community members care about, right? So one of the best places to go is Facebook Insights. If you go to your Facebook Ads Manager and click on Insights under Tools, you're going to see this handy little tool that allows you to look at what your community is interested in. Essentially what it's going to first ask you for is to select an audience, and you can choose everyone on Facebook, or you can choose people that are connected specifically to your page.
And that's important, the distinction here, because so if, let's say you don't have anyone following your brand yet, you can't choose people connected to your page if you don't have people connected
If
to
it's
your
just
page.
your mom, you, and your dog's profile.
Right,
page,
yeah, you don't really want to figure out what a very narrow group of people are interested in and then try to build a larger
Wow,
community
all
around
of them
it.
are interested in you.
I know,
I'm
it's
just
so
going to talk
weird.
about me then, because
that's
obviously
perfect.
my dog and my mom.
That's what I wanted to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
But in this case, you can choose everyone on Facebook and then narrow it down further as you start to give more parameters if you don't have a following. But if you do have an established group of followers and they're reliable, so that's another key factor here. Like if you've maybe gone with a company that sold you on one of those, like, we can get you 2,000 followers in 20 days or less. You really need to understand that those are probably not actual followers of your brand.
All of my followers are in Southeast Asia.
I know,
In
yeah.
a very small community. I'm not even sure if it exists, but
Yeah.
they're all there. I've
Yeah.
got 10,000 of them. They are the best.
Very loyal, yeah. They give you lots of likes and
Yeah.
love, yeah. So keep in mind that the only reason you're going to want to choose to look in more deeply to your followers if they are actual legit followers who have an interest in your brand,
Yeah.
because then finding out what they're interested in is hugely valuable, because you know that if they're interested in your brand and they're also interested in something that aligns with your brand, then that gives you so much more information than just a random group of people that some marketer gathered for you on Reddit.
So, again, pull out your audience persona. So that way, if you're looking at everybody on Facebook, you can kind of narrow it down based on what you already know about your persona. So what their age is, their location, their gender, their interests. And you don't want to list generic interests, right? If they're interested in running and you just type in running, you're going to get crazy stuff, right? I mean, you're going to get people that are looking for marathons and triathlons and people who are interested in running shoes, people who like Nike, all kinds of different stuff. So you got to narrow that down a little bit. And so let's say, for an example, you run a sports blog and most of your content in your community is tailored towards runners, for an example. You can choose something like Runner's World, which is a magazine as an interest, and then you can look at the results of that community as it's broken down. You can see things, for example, on the demographics of people who like Runner's World. You can see their age, how they split between men versus women. You can also take a look at the page likes, the other pages that they like, and you can use those to target your interests. So, for an example, Runner's World might also be interested in things like I can't even think of what these are.
Like the Boston Marathon
There it
or Eat to Perform, for example. That's one that's would be potentially really popular. Favorite run spots, other
CrossFit
related
gyms.
Running periodicals. So it'll give you a lot of really useful information that you might not have necessarily realized was as popular on social media.
Yeah. We added a couple of screenshots of insights and runner stuff up on the show notes, so you can go in and check it out. And you
Yeah,
can
just
send
for
me
an
what we're talking about.
example, so you kind of know what you're looking for. So basically what this Facebook Insights gives you is a list of related categories that this specific audience that you've defined is interested in, and some of the most popular pages within that category. And it's basically a goldmine of ideas for content for your community. So again, we're kind of going back to this runners example, but let's say that your research shows that your audience of runners shows a strong interest in diet and nutrition. You would be wasting your time and resources if you started developing content around the latest shoe release. And instead, you know now that you should focus some content on things like food to fuel marathon training. I mean, so you can really help define what your audience is most likely to find interesting. And that's hugely important in a community where you're looking to engage conversations and interest people in coming to your page for useful, helpful information.
But that's a
they're
really huge leap for a lot of people to say, hey, I sell shoes and I want to sell the latest shoes, to now write articles and posts about diet. That to
Right.
them is going to be like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Yeah. But what you're doing is you're feeding your audience the information they already want. You're becoming the source of information. You're becoming the expert. And so they'll come to you for information about running and nutrition and things like that, but also shoes.
Right.
It's just one of the things.
And that's true. It doesn't mean that your entire community is going to be now built around nutrition while
Yes.
you sell shoes.
Yes.
It just means that you want to focus a variety of information around the various things that your audience is interested in, instead of it being all shoes all the time, because no one's going to be wanting to follow just the latest shoe release. So just because that's what you sell doesn't mean it's what your community is interested in all the time.
Yeah.
You can intersperse things about the newest shoe, but you got to get stuff in there that your audience is actually interested in.
Another gold mine to find out about what your audience is interested in is Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter has its own analytics tool. So if you have existing followers, this makes the process quite a bit easier. You can see related topics or related accounts that your existing followers find most interesting. So you basically go over to Twitter Analytics, choose audiences and your followers. And we gave an example in the show notes again of what a sample followers dashboard looks like, so that you can get an idea of the kind of information that you can get here. And it's really a lot of really great information.
It'll show you what they're interested in, the percentage of the audience that's interested in specific topics, where they're located, what else they follow, like how many followers follow different other things. So if you're obviously selling, let's say you're selling little Deadpool dolls, and you find out, hey, they're really interested in Marvel Studios, and they're interested in the latest Marvel releases coming out. They're obviously going to be following Marvel as one of their things to follow, right?
Right. So the other really cool thing about this Twitter analytics is that it updates in real time. So you can monitor changes in interest as they happen, which is great if you've got a brand that's trending that maybe wasn't big 6 months ago, but is now gaining traction. You can really kind of see, well, what is it about this that's caused my audience to be so interested in joining onto their bandwagon?
Yeah.
You want to follow that brand and figure out what it is that they're doing right that's growing followers in your own community.
So another great place to go is Moz bought a company called Follower Wonk a few years ago, and Follower Wonk gives you just more information about Twitter followers, and it's a freemium tool.
Yes.
Freemium. I like that word. So it's a freemium tool that lets you see who your competition is talking to on Twitter. And you know me, I always like to spy on what my competitors are doing.
And this is great if you don't have your own followers, because I know we just spent a lot of time talking about how to find out insights into your followers. But if you don't have followers, you really want to be able to figure out close competitors in your community, those that are already reaching your target customer, give you the best source of information about what your potential customer is interested in. So you're basically going to figure out who these people are following and look at them as, potential community members that you may want to try to win over to your brand.
So there's a great feature in Follower Wonk where you can compare users. So if you have your own list and your competitor has their own list, you can kind of compare the users between yourself and them and kind of see where the gaps are.
Compare between two competitors too. So if you don't have a follower base, again, you can choose two major brands that are right in your space. And it'll show you, let's say you're, in a marketplace where there's a few peripheral brands that cover different pieces, but that your audience is interested in both of those brands. Then you would plug them both in and it'll show you the commonalities between both of them. And that's like a hugely good place to start your focus in terms of what those members of your community are likely to be interested in.
And on the show notes, we put a little graph up there, an example of one of the searches, and it shows you that kind of concentric circles where you can kind of see where they overlap, and you can kind of see all the different things they like, and you can have content based around where all three of those things overlap. So you can kind of suck off some of those competitors.
So you'll also get a clickable list of followers that are unique to each account, and you can compare social authority of each account so you can decide which ones are ones you really want to target.
So let's talk about social listening tools.
Okay.
These are like eavesdropping on the internet, which is kind of nice.
Kind of sneaky.
Yeah. And Hootsuite also has a really good feature for this. You can essentially just follow a particular phrase or a particular hashtag, or you can follow keywords.
Okay.
And Hootsuite will kind of give you like real time what's happening with those keywords around that you might be interested in.
For searches.
Yeah.
Like what people are searching around those keyword
Yeah.
topics.
And as people are tweeting about it or posting things on Facebook or whatever's happening in social, you'll see a real time feed of what's happening around that particular topic, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
And you can do things like you can add your brand in there, you can add in your keywords, you can add in your competitors, all of that, and you can kind of see what's happening. That's on Hootsuite. You can also use tools like Mention, which will give you things like that, or Google Alerts, which is a little more passive. Google Alerts will just send you an email every time it pops up on the internet. Somebody's posted something about that topic or that brand or something.
Yeah, basically, I mean, the key here is what you want to be able to figure out what your audience is talking about, what they're saying about you, what they're saying about your competitors, and what they're saying to each other. And so you want to be able to utilize tools that'll kind of give you those insights without you having to spend the time manually following everybody and going, oh, hey, somebody just said this about my competitor. So use these tools to streamline that process. Basically, just select a few keywords that you want to be notified for if you're going to be using a tool like Mention or Google Alerts. Just don't put just your own brand name here. I mean, it's important that you do know what people are saying about your brand name, but keywords should be related to your product or a problem you solve, because again, you're looking to define what content you want to be creating for your community around their interests, not just things that people have said about you.
You can also use BuzzSumo or Scoop.it or Scoop.it, and that'll kind of give you some idea of what kind of content is being produced and how many followers that content is getting. So
stories that your followers are sharing on social media, which means that they're interested enough that they're passing it along.
Exactly.
So this basically lets you assess the popularity of content that's being shared. You can use the most popular ideas as inspiration for your next post, knowing that at least it's something that your community is likely to be interested in.
Or you can use the old skyscraper method and find those posts or those blog articles that are interesting to your community and rewrite them, or combine multiple of them together to create the definitive guide to running, or the definitive guide to nutrition, something along those lines. That way you can kind of use the BuzzSumo and all of this social listening you're doing to get other people that are already interested in those topics to follow your now new definitive guide.
Yeah, this is a good strategy if you're looking to build your community without necessarily, let's say you don't have a lot of followers already and you're looking to really engage people by giving useful, helpful information. This would be a good opportunity for a boosted post that you would send out to an audience of people like your existing target audience, to attempt to get them to see you as a source of useful information, engage with you, and ideally like your page.
Yeah. So you can also check out sites like Growth Hackers or Inbound or Reddit. Just take a note of the topics that are being upvoted in your niche, and it's just a good indicator of what's popular in your community.
All right, we're on to stage 3, execute.
Execute.
So you've laid the foundation, and now it's time to build your community. So we've got some guidelines that you want to follow in order to do this effectively.
So first thing you want to do is follow the 80-20 rule.
That's right.
Nobody wants to hang out with somebody who's constantly talking about themselves. Unless you're hanging out with me, then you want to hear all about me.
Of course.
All the time, right? The things I like, the things that I don't like, places I like to go, movies I like to watch. I mean, people like to hear about that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Basically, just don't make your page or community all about you. Make 80% of your content, at least, something that community members are going to appreciate, or even better, something that they're going to love. And then that remaining 20% can be promotional.
Wait. I thought you said not to be promotional.
I know. So you can be promotional here, but I'd still recommend against it, because it's really better if you use this 20% to deliver even more value to your community. Keep in mind, community is really more dedicated towards brand awareness, brand loyalty, brand following. It's not really great for sales.
Well, but I would say that if you are somebody who's constantly giving value, let's take this trainer guy that I've been watching on YouTube, right? I've consumed probably 50 of this guy's videos, but I didn't know what he did until I went out and sought him out.
Yeah, that's true.
Most people aren't going to be like me. Most people are just going to consume his videos and then be gone. That's, hey, thanks, bud, I appreciate it. He needed to occasionally drop in there. Hey, if you want to learn more about this, go to my website. And on his website, then he can be a little more promotional. That would have made a lot more sense than what he's doing, which is just constantly giving me value, which is awesome, but he's never closing the sale. That's like that. I've friend zoned that dude, right? I mean, I just like, dude, you're just in the friend zone, whatever. He's never closing the deal. At some point, he's going to have to ask me, hey, baby, I need a kiss, right? You know what I'm saying? Imagine.
Now I'm creeped out from a marketing perspective.
Well,
but yeah, no, I
get it. He
has
got a really nice body. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. But it's true. I mean, technically, you don't want to waste all of your time and effort. I mean, we're not here for a completely altruistic purpose.
Yeah.
You are developing a community of people that at some point will hopefully be interested to know in the service or product that you offer. And they'll at this point be so engaged with what you offer that if someone, don't make it too hard for them to figure out how to buy something from you,
Yeah.
but just don't overload with the whole like, this is on sale now. You know,
What I would
thing.
do is I would use social media the same way I would use any other kind of content marketing. I would use that to tickle and get interest, then drive traffic to my website, and then my website would have things like lead magnets and squeeze pages, things where I'm trying to get the more heavily engaged users to actually take me up on my offers. And then
That's
once
right.
they've taken some of those smaller offers, then I can start getting them with actual sales offers, because now I've changed my relationship, right? I'm no longer about educating and entertaining, and now I'm bringing them into the fold, so to speak.
So you're basically using your community to engage your audience, and then those that are engaged enough to click through will move on to
Yeah.
their sales funnel stage instead of just
or they'll go
the
back.
brand awareness.
They'll go back. You know, so let's say I've been doing this thing about working out, and I've put all these videos and stuff out, and I eventually invite somebody. Hey, yeah, just download my sample meal plan. Just come to my website and download it. They come and they download it, and I hit them with a couple of sales offers, and they're not interested. They'll just go back and continue to consume my content. But there may be another offer that comes down later on. Hey, I've got my top 6 workouts. I threw them in a DVD, and I'll send it to you for just $5.99 for shipping and handling. Then I go, oh, well, maybe I'll be interested in that. So it just gives me a chance to constantly re-up, but only a little bit, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going to send, not every video is going to end with a sales pitch, because then I'm going to be like turned off. All of my community building goes away.
That's right. All right, so the good news is that you don't have to create the bulk of this content. There's a lot of different ways to generate content or recreate content without having to do it yourself. And this is huge because community time frame can, in terms of the content necessary to engage with your community, it's a lot of content, and
Yeah.
so it can be really overwhelming, particularly if you're a relatively small company. There's no way you have time to do a community development at the same time as running your company.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people will come to us and they'll say, well, I want to post 4 or 5 times a day. And then they'll say, well, I want all original content because I don't want them to go somewhere else when I'm telling them these things. And you're like, well, dude, that's going to cost you a shoot ton of money, right? You're going to have a copywriter. You're going to have a full-time graphics designer. You're going to have to promote this stuff. You're looking at a really expensive thing. You're not Coca-Cola. You're just some dude selling shoes or videos tapes or whatever, right? And so
you're not going to get a return on that investment.
So you do need to use other material that's out there, and you're just going to use it and share it responsibly. Other people are creating content too, and if you can use that to your advantage, and you can be the curator or the editor or the one in the know that's exposing people to this new stuff, then you're still going to get the followers, even if it's not your own stuff.
So some suggestions here would be you can use user-generated content. We'll get a little bit more in depth about this in a second. You can run interviews. You can even share your competitors' content up to a certain extent. Maybe not your direct competitors, maybe aligned brands that are in the same niche but aren't necessarily a direct competitor.
So user-generated content can be things like pictures, videos, testimonials, things that are created by other community members, and just use that as content.
Yeah, this is a great way to get members active while promoting your brand. So we gave an example from the designer Marc Jacobs. They ran this really interesting competition on Instagram where they were basically saying that they were looking for the next model to model their clothing. And so they had a bunch of users basically putting themselves in these, specifically advantageous shots and posting images on Instagram. It developed a huge engagement with their community as people were, following the brand to basically vote for their favorite potential model candidates. And it gained a really steady stream of content for their feed without having to do anything themselves.
Yeah.
So it was a really good idea. I've seen a couple of these different, again, it's very relevant to their brand, to their product line. It's way better as a form of engagement than these generic contests. These generic contests that you see where it's like, win a free iPad for liking and sharing our post. That's not going to give you as much value. It's going to give you these real generic followers that we talked about earlier on. This
Southeast Asia.
Right. This dedicated, very focused promotion that's really relevant to your brand is going to actually engage with people who like your brand, are interested in your brand, and are going to be really valuable followers that you can choose to build your community on.
And it gives just a constant stream of new content to their feed, right? And the beauty of these user-generated posts is, let's say you're an Instagram, and you're on Instagram, you've got 1,000 followers, and then you post something, and you tag Marc Jacobs, and you say, check out this, blah, blah, blah. Then your 1,000 people are now exposed to the Marc Jacobs brand, and times that by 10,000 or 15,000 different entrants into this thing. All of a sudden, you got 15 million people looking at your stuff. That's pretty cool.
So this tactic can work great if you happen to be in a niche that already deals with things people love to post about already. So babies, kids, nature images, things like, let's say you have a dog collar brand or a children's clothing line, again, like the cutest baby, everybody wants to post pictures of their own kid, and then they're going to encourage their fellow moms to either post pictures or to vote for them. So you've got a hugely great opportunity, even if you don't already have an established active following, to use stuff people already want to post about, already want to see. I mean, who doesn't like looking at cute puppies and cute babies?
Couldn't I just repost everything Kylie Jenner does? Because she's popular.
Obviously.
People like her. And so I would just repost her stuff and put my own hashtag on it and just be like, runner shoes.
Sure. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't do that.
Now, basically, in the sense of if you don't already have an established active following, but you have an opportunity to run this type of a contest, you can entice followers with a prize or a contest so long as it's relevant. So that's what I'm saying about when you do these like generic win an iPad for just following my post and following my page and sharing. That's not going to give you relevant followers. You really should only entice with a prize that's relevant to your brand, relevant to your product or service, so that the people who want that prize are the people you want to talk to.
So next is engage. Oh yeah, and engage. Yeah. A community requires that you do more than just provide value. Communities are all about relationships.
That's right. You need to actively engage with your members. You need to read their comments, and you need to join the conversation.
Being humorous and showing your personality goes a long way. Just look at, for an example, we put a example of Wendy's. They have just the best social media manager ever. And I know we've got one up here where, and we'll add it to the show notes, where somebody tweeted out, hey, Wendy's, how many retweets do I need to get free chicken nuggets? And this was really popular.
For a year.
For a year. He wanted free chicken nuggets for a year. How many retweets do I need? And they responded with 18 million. And so he responds back with, consider it done. And sure enough, he did it. He totally made it. And he started tweeting out, help me, please.
As of our picture, he was only at 3 million.
Oh, no, he did it. It was actually very popular. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And
he
now
got his free chicken nuggets. That
was sort of like the beginning of people realizing how really cool Wendy's was. Wendy's, they just came out with an album on Spotify. It's called, with rappers and stuff. But Wendy's just today, I saw, if you're thinking about, I'm trying to think of when this is going to release. It's probably going to be way later. But IHOP changed their name to IHOB. They changed the P to a B. So they're now the International House of Burgers. And so somebody tweeted at Wendy's like, hey, what do you think about this? This sounds like some competition in your neighborhood. And Wendy's goes, we're not afraid of somebody who already failed at making pancakes. And they got a little personality. They got a little bit of spunk.
Oh,
and
man.
That's going to be retweeted a million times because of how absolutely cool that was. So don't be afraid to show off your personality and show off a little bit of snarkiness.
Well, up to a point. I mean, so long as it's not super rude. But
what's IHOP going to do to them? I mean, come on. They
start a little Twitter war.
And even that, then everybody wins, right? If IHOB started to get in a fight with Wendy's, everybody wins. That kind of thing. I like that. Throw some shade. Kylie Jenner, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, there you go. So keep in mind, it's not enough to just respond to requests and follower posts. You have to be proactive. You have to create conversations. That's really what this community is going to be built on. You want people to be interested in what you're talking about and respond in kind, like you are creating a conversation together, both with you and your members and between your members.
Yeah. So just like being a host of a party, if nobody's talking to each other at your party, then it's the host's job to come out and start coming up with subjects. Oh, hey, you just went to the Philippines. I heard you really liked it. Jerry over here has always been interested in the Philippines. Talk amongst yourselves, right? I mean, it's kind of like that. Is what you can do is you can go and invite active members to hang out in like a webinar or contribute to beta testing. You can follow community members and comment on their content. So you can say, hey, I just saw you were at, Coachella. That was so cool. What was your favorite part? And you can start a conversation, and all of a sudden other members are going to be like, oh, dude, I like Coachella too. And I also like blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. You could potentially randomly send out a message to your less active members so they don't feel left out. You can host a Q&A. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can start a conversation using social media. I know Hootsuite, you mentioned them earlier, actually regularly hosts chat sessions with their community. So there's a lot of different ways that you can effectively engage in a way beyond just posting more information.
Yeah.
Like actually create a conversation around that information.
And you won't make friends overnight, but if you keep at it, you'll eventually capture the hearts of your community.
That's right. Engagement doesn't always mean conversation. You can basically, consider the suggestion that we made a minute ago about following your community members to share their content. So you could basically share or retweet or repin stuff that your active community members are doing in their own pages, and therefore create some sort of reciprocal feeling for those more active followers.
Show your followers that you respect their thoughts and opinions enough to promote their posts, and they'll be more inclined to speak positively about your brand.
That's right. So to encourage activity among your community members, you're going to want to be consistent, but not overbearing.
Share my post, damn it.
That's right.
Not that.
You want to seem genuine, and patience really is a virtue here. So if you're, constantly making it clear that you're only doing things for the payback, I guess, you're going to have not
share
as much
my
success.
post, and I'll show your post.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's transparent.
So, unfortunately, let's put our parent hats on.
Okay.
Sometimes you're going to have to lay down the law.
It's true. So sometimes, unfortunately, your community will get consumed by negativity, and this is unfortunate, but it does sometimes happen.
A few bad comments or trolls can consume your community and basically turn the sentiment of your community and lead happy customers away because they're like, I don't want a part of that.
Right. Yeah. Negative breeds more negative. And so you really need to set some rules, set some parameters in advance to ensure that you don't let negative comments go unchecked. Just make sure that you stay friendly in your setting of expectations. I know we talk amongst our kids all the time about setting expectations. It's not as simple to put forth consequences if the person involved doesn't know that they were doing something wrong in advance. And so set those expectations, and here's how.
So to establish a set of rules for your community, we put up an example of the National Wildlife Federation on their description of their Facebook page. They give basically a set of rules for their community of how to treat people on the page, how to respond to comments, and what will get your comments removed. Nothing is worse than going on a page, sharing the information that you have, and you might be a more colorful speaker, right? And you might say a few things that maybe offend somebody, but you figure, you know what, it's Trump's America. I could say whatever I want, right?
Of course.
If that's the case, and you think you're perfectly justified to share your thoughts about, guns or whatever, and then all of a sudden your post gets deleted, you're going to be like, what the heck, right? That's not cool. And you're going to now go into troll mode, and you're going to start posting and posting and posting, and you start a little war for no reason at all. But if you just said, hey, look, we're trying to keep a community here where we want people to be able to share their opinions and thoughts, but we want to be respectful. So here's a few rules to follow. We don't use profanity. We don't talk about guns, whatever it is. But you want to set those rules right up front, so that way when somebody breaks them, they're not like, you're breaking my own personal rules.
Right. Well, and the reason we included the National Wildlife Federation is they do a really good job of starting with an encouraging statement. So they encourage participation, because ultimately you don't want people afraid of commenting by giving them all of this, don't do this and don't do this.
Yeah.
You want to start with the encouragement of, we want to encourage open discussions, but keep messages and comments family friendly. You want to set the expectations. Basically, in this case, they let potential members know that they monitor their own social media accounts. They're ideally going to be responding to posts when they give a certain expectation of time, so that a person who posts a comment doesn't get all cranky and irritated if they don't respond within 5 minutes or less. And basically then it lays out the rules of we reserve the right to delete posts containing any of the following elements, and they go through a list. It's not hugely long, but it's comprehensive enough that it covers the main things like profanity, personal attacks, willful misinformation, spam, those sorts of things. So it's a really good example of how to effectively set up these parameters for your community. So basically, you just want to provide a behavior guideline. So you want to include penalties for breaking the established guidelines, politely phrased, of course. But for example, you just want to basically warn that violators could be banned. Don't deviate from the guideline. You create it, but don't apply different guidelines for different community members. You need to be consistent, just as in parenting. If you set up a consequence and then you don't actually deliver on that consequence, then all of your rules go to naught and it's chaos.
So what if the rules are broken? Just ban everyone, right? Ban them all.
You don't want to basically haul out that ban hammer immediately. You want to be gentle and kind to new offenders. Maybe a person was having a bad day or they simply didn't know about the rules. So start with a polite warning. Make sure they know what they did wrong. And really, you want to reserve banishment for those people who break the rules repeatedly despite warnings. That kind of person that's just going to keep coming. They're like, oh, you said no to that one? Well, I'm going to do it again, because you don't own me. Basically the element of a troll.
Yeah.
It's going to make your community better for everyone if you can get those people off your page, because nobody wants to be involved in that sort of a thing. And I think we've all seen these types of communities that have devolved into just a shouting match between the most vocal and irritable of the followers. And I mean, some people might watch it like a train wreck for a little while, and then they're like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, this is an actual fact on the internet, that if any post has two opposing opinions, within 8 threads, someone will be called a Nazi. It is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Go take a look. There's scientific proof.
Yeah.
Not really. I don't know. I just made that up.
You made that up. Yeah. All right.
So next, you want to listen to your community. Your community is made up of members, not you. So pay attention to the issues your members are bringing to light.
So what if it's negative? The comment that that somebody in your community says.
Well, you don't want to pretend like it doesn't exist or immediately delete it. You want to, again, respond with kindness and seek to resolve the root issue. Here's the thing is, everyone knows you don't live in a perfect fantasy land where everything is perfect all the time. Everyone knows that sometimes people are upset with your brand or dislike your product or get offended by something you said. That happens to everybody. And it's how you handle it that can be the awesomeness, right?
That's right.
If you come back at them and go, well, you're a stupid idiot for what you think, you're probably going to damage your brand a little bit. But if you respond with kindness, point out what it is that they've said or thought or the misconception and handle it properly, that will actually boost up a little more. You almost want to be able to get those objections and those bad feelings out, so that way you can handle them properly, so that way no one else has, oh, well, I'm going to call them a booger bogger. And, oh, wait, somebody else called them a booger bogger, and this is what their response was. Oh, well, that took all the fuel out of that awesomeness, right?
Well, and sometimes if you respond appropriately, members will go back and either retract or edit or even apologize for their initial negativity once their issue is resolved.
Yeah.
So make sure that you acknowledge and thank the person for their comment. Being nice basically discourages the trolls who otherwise feed off a negative reaction. Getting annoyed or angry just encourages that troll-like behavior. And, we always say, don't feed the trolls.
Well, I'll feed them a little bit because sometimes it's fun. But do it on other people's pages.
Yeah, right.
Call them a Nazi.
No, don't do that. So instead, respond with kindness. And ultimately, that sort of negativity will lose steam, and they're going to look elsewhere to get that sort of kick that some people get from being negative.
Yeah. So stage 4, did we talk about stage 1, 2, 3?
We did.
Okay, so stage 4, measure, test, and repeat.
Like most marketing activities, you do need to measure the success of your efforts. Waiting to test until after you've finished building your community is pretty risky.
Yeah. So you can start with something like monthly reporting. So create a monthly report that helps you oversee the progress of your KPIs that you established back in stage 1.
That's right. You want to basically compile the data that answers what's going right, what went wrong, and new opportunities that are worth exploring that you've now discovered through your activities.
And if something went wrong, aim to understand why and avoid those same mistakes in the future.
For example, maybe the timing of your content wasn't quite right for what your community was looking for. One option here is you can ask your members what they liked and didn't like. I know not everybody likes to try and reach out to people who are actively engaged, but you might get some useful information. And it basically allows you to modify your plan of attack accordingly before you begin the next cycle of testing. This is why, again, when we talked about SMART for your goal, you wanted your timeline to be like weeks or months so that you don't spend so much time and effort working on a specific focus and perhaps not getting the rate of return you expected to towards your goal. Give yourself really a measurable spot that's early enough in that you can change direction and try something different to see if it's more successful before you've invested a year's worth of time and effort.
So don't confuse a passive audience with a community.
A community is going to read, watch, listen, participate, and share. It's a group of individuals that are invested in your brand.
They can be champions for your success if they're properly nurtured.
Well, that's it for today. So be sure to head over to growthmarketeracademy.com to check out the show notes where we've posted all of our cool content and graphs and links and all those amazingly fun
all those
things.
made up facts
That's right.
that Andrea puts in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you've gotten any useful tips or tools from our podcast, make sure you rate it on whatever platform you're listening on. Seriously, you guys, rate it. I don't want to have to come out
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah.
And make sure that you don't miss our next episode where we're going to be covering how to run Facebook ads. This is going to be where we give you everything you need to know, from determining what type of ad to run, creating a killer ad that converts, choosing an audience, setting a budget. It's just a ton of great information.
I'm Ryan Eldridge.
And I'm Andrea Eldridge.
Thanks for listening to Growth Marketer Academy.
This has been Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.